So we have done till experimental method. Now open page number 32. Different method, another method which is known as field experiments and quasi-experiment. This is also a part of experimental method. Do remember, we are still doing the experimental method. The other, you can say, subtype of experimental method are what? Field experiments and quasi-experiments. Now, what is the basic difference between the two? Field experiments, as we can get out the meaning that it is usually done in field or in a natural setting. Do not always take the things that always there will be a natural setting or in a field means it is related to trees, it is related to some waterfall, it is related to grass, right? It is not like that. That natural setting doesn't always means park or any place which is close to nature. Your school, a classroom is also a natural setting. If I want to study 11th class students' behavior in class, so the classroom in the school is also termed as a natural setting, because here the behavior is occurring naturally. Controlled laboratory conditions are different. You all have understood by now, right? So field experiment means the things which are happening in a field or in a natural setting. Fine. So field experiments, whenever the things, some behavior are not able to or are not possible to study in laboratories, right? And for that, we have an alternate. We can conduct those studies, those experiments in field or in natural setting. What is the other reason of conducting field experiments? Because the amount of generalizability is much more as compared to controlled laboratory conditions. Getting my point? In field and natural condition, what we are studying? We are studying certain behavior, and the amount of generalizability means that it could be applied to the general population to a great extent as compared to when things are done in controlled laboratory conditions. And it is not applicable on all the behaviors. Certain behaviors are there which could be studied much better in field or natural setting as compared to laboratory experiments. Fine. So this was all about field experiment. Now a new term, quasi-experiment. First of all, just underline the thing. Quasi is a Latin word which means as if, right? It is a word which has been derived from Latin language. Quasi means as if. What is the meaning? Try to understand. See, in other experiment, what we are doing, we are manipulating the independent variable. If you have gone through yesterday's lecture, now I am hoping that IV, DV, externus variables are clear to you people. So what is the difference between the experiments and quasi-experiments? Underline or please write somewhere that in other experiments, the independent variable is manipulated. Means it can be changed or it is changed. Whereas in quasi-experiment, the independent variable is not manipulated but selected. I'll explain you, just keep on writing somewhere. In quasi-experiment, what is happening? The IV is not manipulated but it is selected. Fine. Now let us take an example. Suppose some children have gone through a natural calamity. Let us take an earthquake as it is given in your book. Example, just see on page number 32. Some children have gone through a natural calamity, earthquake. Now for studying how these children are experiencing or how these children are feeling. So for that, what we will do, we need to make experimental group and control group, right? As we have done in yesterday's lecture, experimental group and control group. क्यों बनाना जरूरी है? I told you because to compare the things. The another name of control group is what? Comparison group. Yes. So now how will we proceed in quasi-experiment? Here the IV is not manipulated. See, we cannot create the condition of earthquake, right? We cannot bring the earthquake again, and we cannot, risk the lives of the children into that. So what we're going to do? We will study the after effects, and how come we will divide the children into two groups, the experimental and the control group. In experimental group, we can have children who lost their parents in the earthquake. Fine. Both the groups, we are having children who have faced this natural calamity known as earthquake, right? In experimental group, we are keeping the children who also have lost their parents during this earthquake. And in control groups, we are only keeping the children who have gone through this calamity but did not lose their parents, right? So there is a difference. Got the difference between the two groups? Experimental groups में क्या हो रहा है? Children who lost their parents and also gone through this calamity. And in control groups, there are children who have faced this earthquake but did not lose their parents. Their parents are still alive. Fine. So in the way, now we can compare the two groups because there is a difference. I told you for comparison, difference should be there. There could be no comparison between the similar things. Fine. So quasi-experiment, how you're going to describe whenever question comes. First of all, it has been derived from a Latin word as if. As it is there, if it happens. Certain conditions we put on. And here independent variable is not manipulated but selected, right? And in this, we have taken the experimental group and the control group, and how these groups are different, you can explain it by giving a very easy example. The same example as it is given in your book. Fine. So field experiment and quasi-experiments are also a part of experimental method. But what is the basic difference between the two? Fine. Now let us come upon the next topic, the next method of inquiry, which is known as correlational research. Correlational research, how it is different from experimental method? In experimental method, what we are doing, we are manipulating the thing, right? We are manipulating the independent variable. But in correlational research, we are not manipulating anything. We are simply finding out the relationship between the two variables, whether they are associated or whether they are not associated, or whether they are taking place simultaneously at the same time. So we are doing? Simply finding out the relationship between the two variables. Variables, as we are taking the example, amount of study, right, and number of study hours. Amount of study and your achievement or performance. So we are trying to find out the relationship between the two variables, the amount of study, or you can take study hours, and the second variable, achievement of a student or a performance of a student. So these are what? The two variables. So what we are doing in correlational research, we are simply trying to find out the relationship between the two variables. Now another term we use under the same method, correlational coefficient. What does this mean? The strength and direction of the relationship between the two variables is represented by a number known as correlation coefficient. Correlation you all have understood. Now what is coefficient? This is the strength and direction of the relationship. How much strong the relationship is, or what is the direction. Now how you will going to know about the direction? Because its value can range from plus 1.0 to minus 1.0. This is the scale which we use to determine the correlation coefficient. Plus 1.0 to minus 1.0. And now in between, we try to find out the strength and direction, that whether the relationship is going into negative direction towards -1, or whether the relationship is going towards the positive direction, that is +1, right? Strength in the form of numbers. If 0.85 is there, result is there, so it is close to what? +1. Fine. So this is two things are there. How do we find correlation coefficient? The strength and the direction of the relationship is determined. And what is the value range? +1.0 through 0.0 to -1.0. Fine. First explain what is correlation, how it is different from experimental method. Then come upon explaining what is correlation coefficient, right? Now there are three types of correlation. The first one is positive, second one is negative, and third one is zero correlation. See, when we talk about positive correlation, it means that one variable is increasing, right? So the value of other variable will also be increased, right? X and Y, two variables are there. If the value of X is increasing, the value of Y will also increase. Then only you can say that there is a positive correlation between the two variables. And the other way around, if the value of X is decreasing and the value of Y is also decreasing, then also we can say the same thing, that there is a positive correlation. चाहे increase हो रहा है, चाहे decrease हो रहा है, but दोनों variables का similar चल रहा है, X and Y, in the same direction. Then the relationship will be termed as what? Positive correlation. Now what is negative? Negative में क्या होगा? If the value of X is increasing, what will the value of Y what will happen to the value of Y? It will decrease, right? Opposite will be there. अगर X is increasing, तो Y decrease होगा, right? और अगर X is decreasing, तो Y will what? Y, the value of Y will be increasing. So two will be opposite. Then what we will term? We will term it as a negative correlation. And you can give the same example of amount of study and performance of a student, right? Because by explaining through an example, it becomes very easy for you people also, and it helps you in scoring good marks. Whenever you give example, at least in a 3 marks question, try to give a very small example. Examples are not required in 2-mark question. But if a 3-mark question is there, try to give small example, very brief example, so that you can, explain your answer in a very simple and interesting manner. Fine. Now the third type of correlation is what? Zero correlation. Zero correlation means when there is no correlation, right? Or you can say in other terms that there is no significant relationship exist between the two variables. Although it is difficult to find zero correlation in psychology. Fine. Just remember this, that it is very difficult to find zero correlation. ऐसा बहुत मुश्किल है कि किसी भी दो variables के बीच में कोई relation हो ही नहीं, points में भी नहीं है. It is very difficult, but yes, it happens. Exceptions are there. So zero correlation also exists, but it happens very rare. Fine. So all the three kinds of correlation cleared. So it was all about correlational research. Now let's come upon the other method of inquiry, which is known as survey research. Survey, as you people have heard this name quite a lot. Many of you maybe participated also in any kind of surveys, right? I think as far as I remember, there was a road safety week going on, in our school, and they have distributed certain pamphlets, right? So in the same manner, that road safety program, they have distributed certain surveys also. Surveys means a very short questionnaire, a very short, setup of question and answers, which has to be answered in true or false, either in a tick mark or in a cross. So that was a very easy and very simple example, as we are dealing with any kind of situations in our daily life. So road safety program ho gaya, yeah, during election, when voting is done, so certain surveys are conducted to know the opinions, attitudes, and social facts about people. Fine. So survey is done generally what to know about the attitude, about the opinion, and the social facts, that what people generally think about certain things. The survey is mainly done in these kind of field. You can give example: attitude of people towards family planning, attitudes toward people like giving powers to Panchayati Raj institutions for running programs related to health, education, sanitation. It is also done during elections or during voting. Fine, so you can give some of these examples, and any other example from real life situation, you are always welcome to give that. So survey research. Now, under the survey research, there are different techniques for collecting information. What are they? First, we start with personal interviews. Then afterwards, there are certain other techniques also. So let us start with personal interviews. Now, what is interview? As you all understand, interview is what? It is a face-to-face interaction between two people or more than two people. Fine. So there are two broad categories of interview. First one is what? Structured or standardized, and second one is what? Unstructured and non-standardized. Interview, you all understand, right? Now there are two broad categories of interview. What are they? First one is standardized, or you can use the word structured. The second one is what? Unstructured, or you can use the word non-standardized. Now, what is the basic difference between the two? Structured or standardized interviews, you can say, consist of close-ended question. Getting the point? Close-ended question का मतलब क्या हो गया? OTQs, in which options are given, in which certain alternatives are given. You have to choose the best among them. Right, so it is easy also, and it is properly organized and structured, and it is having a time limit also, right? So structured and standardized की जब भी बात करेंगे, तो we are having questions which can be termed as close-ended questions, right? Now, what is happening in unstructured and non-standardized interviews? It is consisting of open-ended question. What is open-ended question? Any topic I'm giving you, and I'm asking to you people to express your opinion, your feelings, your views, your perception on that topic, right? So that is what open-ended question. Open-ended question is a time-consuming process also, because a person can take time to express their feelings. Essay writing is what? It is also a kind of open-ended question. I give you a topic, right? I suppose I say your favorite person in your life or your biggest dream in your life. I just give this heading and I ask the people to write on it. So it will be a open-ended question. Or you can take example, the long questions which comes in your exam, in your subjects, in social science or in any subject, the long questions, essay type question, in which you have to write the definition also, the types also, the factors also, many things are there, and their answers will be different of each student, right? The things will be the same, the terms will be the same, but the way they are explaining it, the way the description has been given by each and every student will be different or not. Yes. So you can say open-ended question are subjective type of question because individual differences are there. But is it happening in close-ended question? No. Close-ended question में तो क्या है? Question number 1 का अगर true है तो वो true सबके लिए ही है. अगर कोई false लिख रहा है, then the marks will be deducted automatically, right? So close-ended question objective हो गया और open-ended question क्या हो गया? Subjective हो गया. Now you're going to remember the things between the two, the difference between the two. Fine. Now interview may have the following combinations of participants. Just I'm going to it very fast. It's very simple. किस तरह से हो सकता है interview? From individual to individual, right? One, a person is asking the question, the another person is answering. Second one could be individual to group. One person is asking the question to a group of people, right? And it is also known as focus group discussion. That is FGD. Focus group discussion में क्या हो रहा है? One interviewer is there, one person who is asking the question, and there is a group of person who are answering those questions. As we can say, this FGD is happening in our classroom also. Teacher is asking a question. Suppose let us take the situation which is going right now. I am asking a question, suppose, right? And you all people are answerable to me. Fine. So group of persons who are answering the question, and only one person or interviewer who is asking the question. The third one is group to individuals. It is a situation where one group of interviewers interview one person. अब क्या हो रहा है? Opposite हो रहा है. पूछने वाले जो लोग हैं वो ज़्यादा है. There is a group of interviewers, and who is answering? Only a single person. Fine. ये कब होता है? जब हम भी, suppose you take an example, if you are appearing for a job interview, right? You are the only one who is answering, and there is a panel of people who are asking questions from you, right? There are a lot of people, 4 to 5 people are sitting in front of you. So group of interviewers to a single person. The third one is group to group. It is a situation very easy. पूछने वाले भी बहुत ज़्यादा हैं और आंसर देने वाले भी ज़्यादा हैं, right? So it is a situation where one group of interviewers interview another group of interviewees. Just get it clear. Interviewer, the person who is asking the question, and interviewee who is answering, who is giving the answers. So please get these terms also clear. So this was all about interview. Now certain limitations and advantages are given. So we'll just go through it quickly. Interview method helps in obtaining in-depth information. In-depth information, that it gives you information in detailed manner. It is flexible and adaptable to individual situations and can often be used when no other method is possible or adequate. These are the advantages of interview method. Another one is what? It can even be used with children and non-literate person. Yes, in interview we are asking questions orally. Only verbal interview is there, if verbal interview is there. So this could be done with children and non-literate people also. Fine. Now what could be the disadvantage, as we have to write the disadvantage also. So interview require time, right? And often getting information from one person may take an hour or more, which may not be cost effective. So you can say it is a time consuming process sometimes, and it is cost effective means it is a little bit, you can say, costly also. So it is not applicable to every kind of interview. It has only given in a very general way. So it is cost effective, you can write, and time consuming when limitations are there for interview method. Fine. The second method of survey. Now please remember, these methods what we are doing are a part of a survey method. Survey method is applying certain techniques. The own techniques mein, what was the first one? Which was the first one? The interview method. Now we are going to do the second technique, questionnaire survey. Now questionnaire survey में क्या हो रहा है? The questionnaire is the most common, simple, versatile and low cost self-reporting method of collecting information. This is the definition of a questionnaire. Please underline page number 34, second column, last paragraph. Questionnaire, it is the most common, simple, versatile. It can be used in various kind of situations, with variety of situations. low cost, and self-report method. Self-report method का मतलब in which the person is reporting by herself or himself, right? Because you are answering the questions, that means self-reporting method. And through all these things, we are collecting information. They are in some ways like highly structured interviews. Questionnaires are generally in a form of a structured interview. When we are saying structured interview, then what is the meaning? It simply means that it generally consists of close-ended questions or objective questions. But questionnaire also contain open-ended question, right? There are subjective questions too in questionnaire. Now, what is another feature of questionnaire? Close-ended questions require responses like yes or no, true, false, multiple choice, or using a rating scale. All other things you people know, but what is the meaning of a rating scale? See, rating scales are very important in our subject. Rating scales means there are various kind of rating scales. We can say a 3-point rating scale, a 5-point rating scale, a 7-point rating scale, a 11-point rating scale. So what does it mean? When I say 3-point rating scale, means 3 options are given or 3 choices are given. Suppose they have given example, agree, undecided, disagree. A question is there, and in front of that question, 3 choices are given: agree, undecided, and disagree. Fine. So you have to select the best one which suits you better, right? So you will select only one out of them. So it is known as 3-point scale because there are 3 choices. If there is a 5-point scale, then what will be the choices? Strongly agree, then agree, undecided, disagree, and strongly disagree. Fine. So 5 options or 5 choices are now available. So according or on the basis of these choices, we rate the scale. We term them as 3-point or 5-point or 7-point. Fine. So rating scales is a new term for you. Now let's come upon very simple again, telephone survey. It is also one of the technique of survey method. When we are using telephone or mobile nowadays, when we are giving SMS or we are asking questions on WhatsApp, all these are connected to telephone survey, right? There is also a possibility. Now, what are the limitations in this kind of survey? What happens generally that those responding may differ from those not responding. See, there is also a possibility that those responding may differ from those not responding. Example on age, gender, income levels, education levels, etc. Besides their psychological characteristics. So this will lead to very biased kind of result. On telephone, what is happening? People hide their body language, people hide their facial expression, people may even hide their tone also. Sometimes they maintain a very artificial kind of behavior, and they are not usually giving their genuine feelings or genuine answer. They are just giving the socially acceptable answers. So what will happen? The results are generally biased and not precise and accurate. So this is all about telephone survey. Now, on an overall basis, on page number 35, certain advantages and limitations are given of survey method altogether. What are the advantages? First, information can be gathered quickly and efficiently from thousands of persons. Second advantage is surveys can be conducted quickly. Public opinions on now issues can be obtained almost as soon as the issues arise. Right? What is the advantage? That we can gain, we can collect, or we can gather the information very quickly and efficiently to many people at the same time. Surveys could be done on thousands of people, right? And second advantage, that what is happening because of social media. Because of social media, the things, any accident or any issue is arising in the country, and suddenly we are getting informed of it, right? So public opinions on new issues can be obtained almost as soon as the issue arises. So this is also a advantage of survey method. So we can know about public opinions as soon as possible. What are the limitations? First, people may give inaccurate information because of memory lapses, or they may not want to let the researcher know what they really believe about a particular issue. What are the limitations? People are not giving their genuine responses. Second, people sometimes offer responses they think the researcher wants to hear. That means socially acceptable. Generally, हम क्या बोल देते हैं? What we give answers that we know that answers are ethically right or socially acceptable. So if we are thinking in opposite direction, then also we give the socially acceptable answers. So that makes the study very inaccurate and unprecise. So it is also a kind of limitation you can give about the survey method. Fine. Ma'am, please stop the recording.